Hannity, less than 48 hours removed from the moment when the not guilty verdict was handed down in the George Zimmerman murder trial. Tonight, over the course of the next 60 minutes, we'll be coming to you live with complete coverage of this controversial conclusion to one of the most talked about legal cases in recent history. Here to kick things off, I'm joined right here in our New York studios by two members of the Zimmerman defense team, attorneys Mark O'Mara and Don West. Welcome to the program. Thank you very much. Congratulations to both of you.
Thank you very much.
All right, any knock-knock jokes?
Not tonight.
All right, I'm just kidding. I know you probably got a lot. Are you surprised how big this all got?
I am. Actually, I thought it was big to begin with, and I thought it was going to slow down, particularly when the evidence started coming out, because you first and then me second said, look, guys, let's just wait. Sit back. You don't know the evidence yet because I don't know it yet. Let's wait until we have all the evidence. And I thought that would sort of tend to swell the tide or bring it back. But it never did. And part of that was because of the way the prosecutors were hiding some of the evidence and the discovery, and it just kept it at this fever pitch way too long.
Yeah, I agree. We're going to get to that in a minute. Don, what do you think won this case for you?
The evidence.
Well, what are the big factors, in other words? Just the, like, for example, I think three things really came into play for me. The justification, the law, the eyewitness, and I would say even though they weren't necessary, the injuries.
You mean what was the most important evidence
Yes.
in the case? The eyewitness, of course, whose testimony completely corroborated what George Zimmerman said and also matched the ballistics, matched the medical examiner's testimony, not Dr. Bowles, but rather Dr. Vincent DeMaio.
Right.
It all matched up.
All right. One of the things, you, in closing arguments, I thought you did a really good job of pointing out to the jury, this is not the same as everyday life. For those that maybe didn't hear it, explain that.
The frustration that I have with juries is they default to what we all do. We all default to this, make a decision every moment of every day because you have to. And that's sort of a very quick decision-making process. The criminal standard is so much higher than that. The beyond a reasonable doubt standard we never use in our daily life. Even getting married or moving or getting a new job is always compromising back and forth. The decision to convict somebody has got to be one which is beyond what we're ever used to. And my fear, as I said to the jury, is that they will start defaulting back to their normal decision-making processes that hurts a criminal defendant.
Let me go to the justification of the use of force. These were the jury instructions, because I think this was very key in making their decision. And it says, an issue in this case is whether or not George Zimmerman, in fact, acted in self-defense. It is a defense to a crime of second-degree murder or the lesser-included offense of manslaughter if the death of Trayvon Martin resulted from the justifiable use of deadly force. Deadly force means force likely to cause death or great bodily harm. A person is justified in using deadly force if he reasonably believes that such force is necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm. If George Zimmerman was not engaged in an unlawful activity and was attacked in any place where he had a right to be, he had no duty to retreat, had the right to stand his ground, meet force with force, including deadly force, if he reasonably believed that it was necessary to do so to prevent death or great bodily harm to himself or another, or to prevent the commission of a forcible felony. Explain that to our audience, because that's the law.
Here are the most critical words. If you reasonably believe that you're about to suffer great bodily injury, you can react with deadly force. We all have that right. Stand your ground laws doesn't matter. Every self-defense case allows you to react to great bodily injury with deadly force. To explain what George did was George suffered 45 seconds of being attacked because we know it was him screaming. Everyone knows it was his screaming now. And he was getting battered because we see the injuries. And he reacted to those injuries at a point when he had to, just like Dennis Ruth said, he had no other alternatives. He had already tried to scream to stop it, and he'd already asked for help from the witness, and it didn't help. He had no other choice.
Let's go over the irregularities in the case, Don. For example, the withholding of evidence, which your partner mentioned. Explain that.
You know, a moment ago I said, what's the most important thing? Evidence, as opposed to an appeal to emotion. Let's look at the real evidence, and it was like pulling teeth to get the real evidence, the exculpatory evidence, this information that is the foundation of the way the criminal justice system is supposed to work, says that the defense is entitled to all exculpatory evidence. And we fought month after month after month just to get what should have been given without the hundreds of hours that it took. So that's the way this started, and unfortunately it continued until the very day the trial started.
What did you think of Angela Corey firing the IT person that exposed this?
I think that's certainly the way she handles her business. I think that's shown in the way she handled the trial and the ways I guess she trains prosecutors to fail to give over discovery like Don talked about. So I think, that's just in her stripes. But I think it's despicable when somebody comes to the forefront and exposes an unethical behavior that they then get fired even though they have a 4-month-old child.
Special prosecutor, no grand jury, irregular?
Very well. They don't have to impanel a grand jury, but in a case like this, with the type of focus this had, and realizing that you already had a grand jury in place, why not use 18 people from the community to make a decision that they're supposed to be empowered with? Why should you come in from an out-of-area county and come down here and make a decision after praying with the family and not let 18 citizens from Seminole County make the decision they were ready to make?
What about evidence that you wanted to use but were not allowed to use? What is that evidence?
Well, we looked at this case and how aggressive we would get with our defense based upon how the prosecution was handling their case. And what we wanted to do would be the ones who were making the decision. That's why we fought so hard to get in the toxicology results, because we should have had that. Then we make a decision, tactical decision, whether or not it comes in. We decided not to because it wasn't that significant. We definitely should have had that same right to look at Trayvon Martin's cell phone and say, this is a guy who knows how to fight because he talked about getting mounted and how that was a position where he couldn't do anything, and that if you punch somebody in the nose, you can win a fight. The judge should definitely have let us use that information.
That seemed crucial to me.
Well, it was. It turns out we didn't need it, but I think that should have been our decision.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Any other evidence, Don, that you would have liked to have brought in?
I think that's the most powerful evidence that was kept out, and that in and of itself, I think, would have helped equalize this notion in the jury instructions, the physical ability,